Here we go. Hello, 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 and welcome back to everyone out there. This is Andrea with From Mrs. to Ms. I am being joined today by a wonderful woman that is going to tell some very fascinating and interesting stories. I had such a good laugh, I guess, reading through some of her stuff on her website. She's got some incredible books out, and I'd like to welcome Billie Best to the episode. Hi, Billie. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, Andrea. I'm really glad to be here. I think you got a great show going here.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So just to tell you guys a little bit about Billie. So Billie is an author of 3 books and over 200 blog posts at billiebest.com. She writes about midlife reinvention, which is exactly what From Mrs. to Ms. is about. So this is great. She also talks about sex and marriage and women's wellness. She lives in Oregon with her boyfriend and their dog. Her first book, How I Made a Huge Mess of My Life, or Couples Therapy with a Dead Man, is a 2020 memoir about widowhood and meeting her husband's mistress. Oh my gosh. And her 2024 novel, Clitapalooza, Her Flower Blooms Power, is a humorous satire about a midlife math professor's adventure with a hunky chatbot, highlighting the dangers of sex tech and AI in intimate relationships. Both books portray the challenges of an aging marriage, the power of a midlife woman's passion, and the bumpy ride of reinvention. Wow, that is amazing. I am loving this already. I love the titles of your books. So, so good. So let's start at the beginning, Billie. How did you get started in this? I mean, you've been through so many different careers in your life. I read at one point you were a waitress, and then you were in the music business, then the corporate world, then a farmer, and now here you are. So what inspired these career choices and turning these into funny satirical books? Tell us all about it.
Well, like a lot of young women who become infatuated with the stage, I wanted to be an actress.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? It means I was a waitress, right?
Right.
I was a waitress in New York City.
Uh-huh.
I took my first job with a rock band, moved to Boston, and I met my husband when I was 22. He was the bass player. I was the stage manager of a rock band in Boston.
Oh,
And,
wow.
I lived in Boston for a long time.
Uh-huh.
And we were married for 32 years.
Oh my goodness. What a run that is. So how
It
did we
is
get
quite a
here?
run. It is quite a run.
Yeah.
Well, uh, one thing about the arts, it's hard to make money. And there was a
Yeah.
point when I was hitting 30 where my life shifted from, oh, I love the arts to, oh, I want to make some money. I
Yeah.
really, really want to make some money. And I just shifted into corporate gear and spent the next 20 years in the corporate world,
Okay.
in marketing and communications. Did really well in the 90s when the internet was being launched. And it
Mm.
was kind of a gold rush, and I was there to pan for gold. And
Yes.
bought a country house, thought that barn was going to be like a big walk-in closet. And it turned out that after 9/11, I got the itch to farm and went back to school for agriculture. Decided money wasn't important to me anymore. And it was an exciting thing to do as a woman following her passion, but it was not great for my marriage.
Yeah. Well, how random is that farming? Is that something you'd always been interested in, or you had parents that did farming? Where did that come from? I don't know. I haven't heard that
Yeah.
one. You're like, I don't
Well,
know.
we bought a country house that we thought was going to be our weekend house, our
Yeah.
escape to the country because we lived in the city. And it happened to be a farm and it happened to have a barn. And none of those things really meant anything to me until, a lot of people had epiphanies on
Mhm.
September 11th. Uh, yeah, I wanted to do things that meant more.
Yeah.
I didn't want my life to be all about the money.
Hmm.
I had time on my hands, like a lot of people did. Work slowed down to nothing. And I started exploring this old farm we had purchased. And then I started taking classes
Oh,
and I got hooked.
I
And
love it.
yeah, I did love it. It was an amazing thing to do with my life. And I'm very proud that I did it. But you see how I'm using the I word a lot
Yeah.
here? I
Yeah.
did this, I did that, I
Yeah.
followed that, not the we.
Yeah.
And
See where
yeah,
this is going. Yeah.
yeah.
So speaking
Yeah.
of,
Yeah.
let's talk about your first marriage. So
Yeah.
tell
Yeah.
us, okay, what was it like? And I guess we're hearing this, what changed so dramatically for you after quitting your high paying job and turning to farming that kind of blew everything up, if you will?
Well, all those years that I was working in the corporate world and literally bringing home the bacon, my husband was free to be an artist because I made enough
Mm,
money to support our household. He was free to pursue a career in music. He had an audio studio in our home.
mhm,
I paid for everything. Of course I did. I was
yeah.
working full time, and when I decided to quit the corporate world, I did not think about the little story I just told you. I
Yeah.
did not think, oh, what will he say when I do this? I was hitting 50. I was in my power mode. I
Yeah.
knew exactly what I wanted, and there was nothing stopping me. And I just did it
Yeah.
without a thoughtful conversation with him about how it would affect him if I stopped bringing in the money. And of course, he had to get a job. And it was the first time he had to really get a job,
Mm,
a
he didn't
straight
like
job, a real
that.
job. He did not.
Yeah.
He did not. It wasn't the basis for a relationship. You
Hmm.
don't really think about that because we didn't sign a contract when we got married that said, I'm going to make the money, you're going to be the artist.
Yeah.
That's the groove we fell into. And then when I fell out of the groove, it hurt him,
Yeah.
it hurt his feelings, but also it wasn't the life he wanted.
Yeah. But going back, I mean, that's not the life you necessarily wanted either because you wanted to be in the arts yourself. Was there ever that conversation when you switched to go to corporate world? Was he ever like, no, I want you to follow your passion and your dreams and not do that? Or was it like, yes, now I get to do what I want to do on her dime?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He never really encouraged me to pursue the arts. And
Yeah.
look, I did try to become a writer when I
Hmm.
was in my 40s.
Hmm.
I thought I had great stories. I took some classes in writing. I
Hmm.
joined a writers group. I and it came between us.
Yeah.
It put me on a different schedule than him. Writing
Yeah.
is a solitary activity. You don't do it with your pal.
Yep.
And I was getting up in the morning before he did, and going to bed at night before him. And I was putting my energy into writing and not into being together with him.
Yeah.
And he wasn't into it. And so I stopped. I stopped writing in my 40s. I kept journals, but I just put aside the idea of being an artist myself
Hmm.
and just, you know, dug into the money for a while.
Yeah. Which is sad because what I'm hearing is, you gave up kind of that acting thing. You kind of wanted the arts, then the writing, all these things along the way to allow his dreams to come true. And
Yeah.
did you feel ever like resentment towards him or were you like good with it? Because you knew he was
I
happy.
felt like he was more talented than I was.
Okay.
And that's a real twisted thing to say to yourself.
Yeah.
But I was just learning to be a writer. I wasn't a
Yeah.
great writer. I was learning to be a writer.
Yeah.
And he was a great musician. He was very talented. He had
Hmm.
many, many years experience. And I felt like he was a better artist than I was, and like
Yeah.
I was wrecking what we had by
Yeah.
trying to do this other thing. So I put it aside. I
Yeah.
put it
Like,
aside for another, yeah.
yeah, that's hard. You just felt like he was a little bit more deserving of the fame and success but you were there to help support that. And that was, I guess, enough for you at the time.
It was. Money's a nice thing to have.
Yeah.
And we were living very, very comfortably, and we were taking European vacations, and we had nice cars, and we had this cool house in the country, and
Hmm.
everything was proceeding really according to that, uh I would call it the middle class dream, right?
Right.
And then I hit the wall, and then 9/11, and then I was unemployed for a while, and then I discovered like agriculture and farming and cows and chickens, and
Yeah.
I got goats, and I got so invested in that. I cared so much about it. They were like the children I never had. And he expressed his unhappiness, and I was like, get over it,
Yeah, good for
you
you.
know?
It's my turn.
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit,
Yeah.
you know, if there's a difference between a woman in her, I would say 30s, 40s,
Yeah.
and when you hit your 50s, especially I think menopause, postmenopause,
Yeah.
where you're not worried about getting pregnant, you're not having kids, you're not in family planning mode, you're not thinking, oh, I got to keep my body working because I'm setting this stuff up for my future.
Yeah.
We're done with all that. It is just you and your brain, right?
Yes,
And I was
yes.
like, look, this is what I want to do, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Mm, yeah.
Good for
Well,
you. Okay, so then
yeah.
so his band and everything he was doing and his success was thriving until it wasn't. Right. So then what happened when it kind of winded down? You had mentioned on your website that he started facing depression. So what happened next?
Well, he was obviously depressed.
Yeah.
He was unhappy. And I kind of thought, work through it, get over it, move
Hmm.
on. This is life now. We all have our hard times. We all go through stuff. You'll figure it out.
Hmm.
Go to a therapist. You'll figure it out. So it didn't make me want to end the marriage.
Okay.
But I became more absorbed in myself. I got a radio show. I was doing public speaking. I was promoting
Amazing.
small farms, and it was a very new and up and coming thing at the time. And wow, it really he was really left out of something that I was very passionate about.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah,
So,
kind of.
kind of,
Kind
right?
of.
Terribly. So in your notes, you
Yeah.
had mentioned that radical moves always have unintended consequences, and you referred to calendars and clocks. What did you mean by that?
Yeah. Well, so in my real life, which is the memoir, but
Hmm.
also in the novel, which is fiction, but deals with a lot of the same issues in a more explicit way than I could with my real life.
Yeah.
When you live with somebody for a long-term relationship, okay, 20 years, 30 years, 40
Mhm.
years, your lives become so in sync and so conjoined, you don't even see it in so
Yeah.
many ways. Your biology, your um, clock, your
Yeah.
circadian rhythm,
Yeah.
when you go to bed, when you get up, when you're hungry, when you eat, what you feel like eating, uh, your vacations, your weekends, your days off, all these things, uh,
Autopilot.
autopilot.
Hmm.
And so, what I didn't realize as a farmer
Hmm.
was that my schedule as a farmer was way off from his schedule in the music business.
Yeah.
And in the novel, the professor quits her job because she wants to stay home. And again, you're not on the same schedule. So what does that mean? Well, let's just talk about sex.
Yeah.
When you're going to have a good sex life at home with somebody that you know really well, you've got to kind of your energies have to like flow together. You
Yeah.
have to be in the kind of the same mood at the same time.
Yeah.
And one thing that really helps that is sleeping together, like going to
Oh,
bed at the same time,
yeah. Yeah.
and being drowsy at the same time, but also being naked in the bedroom at the same time,
Yeah.
and taking showers together, and just all that really intimate stuff
Yeah.
that completely changes when you're just on a very different schedule from them. And all those natural moments go away. And all of a sudden, you're like making an appointment, which is
Yeah.
not sexy,
No,
right?
no, not sexy.
Not sexy.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a requirement, an agenda. Yeah. Not fun.
Yes. It puts a lot of pressure on the relationship
Yeah.
that isn't there. If you're going to bed together, even if you're like reading in bed or, watching something on a screen, you're still in those clothes that you wear when you sleep, and you're in that
Mm,
comfy, cushy, huggy place, and you're probably touching skin
yeah.
and your pheromones, and you're just relaxed.
Yeah.
And it's just a natural thing to be physical.
Yeah.
And when you completely miss that because you're not um, in the same headspace at the same time, whether that's the bed, the bedroom, the bathroom, the shower, getting dressed or undressed,
Mhm.
even mealtime, can be a quiet time that's kind of intimate together in the kitchen, or I don't know, your feet touch under the table, stuff
Yeah,
like
just those
that.
little things. Little things.
Yeah.
And then he started to refuse sex, right? As he was going through this depression. And did you
Yeah.
understand that at the time? Did you relate it to the depression, or did you find out it had to do with something else at that point?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I I totally believed him that he was depressed. He
Mhm.
was seeing a therapist,
Mhm.
and I understood why he was depressed, because I was at the peak of my passion, loving my life, and he was at a very low point where things he had loved had just fallen apart.
Yeah.
And he was still interested in music and the stage and recording, and I was more interested in the barn and the cows and the chickens.
And he felt
And it
left
was
out.
not a good match. Yeah,
Yeah.
he did feel left out.
Yeah.
And so, what I didn't know, that I didn't find out until after he died, really. So,
Mhm.
in
Surprise.
2008,
He
yeah,
died.
yeah, yeah,
We forgot
in
that part.
2008, yeah. No, the subtitle of the novel is Couples Therapy with a Dead Man, right? Which is really, I mean, the memoir. That
Yes.
it's the because I learned so much about my marriage after my husband died.
Yeah.
So he was diagnosed with cancer
Mhm.
in June of 2008. And it he was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. And it happened
Mm.
very fast. And I loved him. Okay. Yes, this stuff was going on with the farm and the music and the depression and us not sleeping together and him refusing sex and those things.
Yeah.
But I loved him.
Yeah,
I
you had a
didn't not love
history.
him.
Yeah.
We were 30 years. So I loved him. And when we got the diagnosis, it was devastating. And I completely agreed to be his caregiver,
Mhm.
and just to really, I stopped what I was doing. I
Mhm.
kept the farm going, but I was working for nonprofits, and I was, on boards in town, and I stopped the volunteer work and focused everything on taking care of him.
Mm.
And so June was the diagnosis. And as word got out, people started to visit and
Mhm.
wanted to come see him because he was slipping really fast. And
Yeah.
people were calling him. And this woman that he had been friends with in the 80s sent him this gigantic Breville juicer, like a $400 juicer shipped from Amazon to our house. And
Mm.
that was my first clue that she was on the scene, was when the juicer showed up at her house. And
Oh,
I couldn't figure out why. And he just
yeah.
kind of blew it off. And chemo's a great place to hide, because
Yeah.
chemo does screw with your brain, and it does make your
Yeah.
hair fall out, and you are sick all the
Yeah.
time. And so if you're gonna lie, you could just go, you're too weak, you're too tired, you can't face it, you can't
Yeah.
focus. Well, I said, if you're gonna be friends with her and she's in your life because of what you're going through, then I don't want you to hide it. I want you to be friends with her in front of me, because she was an old girlfriend and I knew about her. And so
But
let's just be cool about this. And he said, okay, I'm inviting her for the weekend.
oh,
Yeah. I was like, okay, what am I going to say? Of
yeah.
course, invite her for the weekend. And then he rallied. He rallied from the chemo brain, from the guy who was on his deathbed. He put on a really nice shirt. He looked really good when he answered the door. He gave her a big kiss on
On
the
the
lips,
lips?
like a Hollywood kiss, like
What?
arms, lips, like all that.
No.
Yes. And then they went out shopping
Without you.
without me, and they came back with food, and they said they wanted to cook dinner for me.
This is
And
weird.
I mean, you were in a relationship, that, like,
Uh-huh.
if you cook with somebody, it's like a
It
dance.
is. It's intimate. It can be very intimate.
It is.
Yeah.
You're in the kitchen together, the stove, the refrigerator, the countertops, the sink, you're moving around, you're
Flirting a
close to each
little.
other.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so I'm sitting there watching them cook dinner, and it dawns on me that this is not the first time they've done this,
Oh,
that they're too
wow.
smooth together. They're not reacquainted old friends.
Yeah.
They are people who are very comfortable cooking together.
Yeah.
And look, the next day he took her out for the day without me. And the day after that, she left. And I confronted him and I confronted her before she left. And they were both in denial. And
Uh-huh.
he was having his last chemo treatments. He was not getting better, he was
Yeah.
getting worse. And so even though I saw it with my own eyes,
Hmm.
I didn't want the last days of his life to be about her.
Yeah.
He was
I don't
dying. He was
blame you.
clearly dying. And I didn't want to
Yes.
talk about her. I didn't want to fight about her. And I didn't want to even have a conversation about her.
Yeah.
He told me not to overreact. He said she's a broken doll. He said she has alcohol problems. He said, just forget about her. She's not important to me. He said, I love you. Okay, all that.
So at this point, he hadn't
Then he
admitted that they were together at
nothing,
all. Yeah.
hadn't admitted anything. And
Mm.
he died without admitting anything.
Oh,
So he
wow.
died in January, so 6 months after the diagnosis.
Wow.
And it just went downhill so fast. And it was so many crises to deal with in our home.
Yeah.
You know, I was very focused on him and trying to help him die well, because he decided he wanted to die at home.
Mm.
And so that takes a lot of effort.
Yeah.
It takes up a lot of space, psychologically, emotionally, but also physically.
Yeah.
In our living room was a hospital bed and oxygen tanks and
Yep.
that.
Yeah.
So it was after he died, and I had his cell phone, his laptop with his email, his camera with all of his photos and his photo galleries. I had his text messages, and I had his calendars, right? His work calendar. Because
Yeah.
in 2008, right? This is mostly paper,
Yeah.
right? This is
Yeah.
all paper trail. It wasn't
Yeah.
all in apps on a phone, right? It was a
Right.
paper calendar and paper credit card receipts. And he had texts but it was on one of those phones where you punch the whole
Yeah.
alphabet, you know,
Oh,
on the
yeah.
keys. And so the texts were short, and the emails, he still had an AOL account. I mean, it was all there.
Wow.
And what happened was, after he died, I found all this stuff. And
Mhm.
that's when I really started to crash, right?
Yeah, of
Because
course.
I was discovering that they had been having an affair for a few years,
Oh my goodness.
maybe since I started farming.
Wow. He started
Yeah.
farming too.
Yeah. A little bit like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was tough because my life wasn't what I thought it was. And,
Yeah.
looking at the calendar and seeing the credit card receipts from a restaurant in Maine where he and I spent our honeymoon, and
Ah,
he took her there,
yes.
the
Oh,
restaurants from I mean, just
everything.
so it devastated me.
I'm
It
sure.
just devastated me.
Especially how
And
much time you'd given, how much love, how much support, the going back and thinking about everything you put into his career to almost feed that to happen, right? Where he's out seeing somebody else and you're probably
yeah,
footing the bill,
I
you
was
know?
actually,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I'm
yeah,
sorry. I'm so
yeah.
sorry. Yeah.
Well, so what I believe is, life goes on. Today, that happened in 2009, he died. Today, I
Mhm.
am in a very happy place. And
Love it.
after he died, I committed to writing, and I
Uh-huh.
started to become a writer, and I went, back to school and taking classes and working on writing a memoir about what I had been through with him.
Yes.
And that's the book that's called How I Made a Huge Mess of My Life,
Mhm.
because I felt like I hid what happened with him because I wanted our life to look perfect.
Yeah. We all do.
And
It's shameful,
it
right?
kind
In
of,
our minds.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I was ashamed.
Yeah.
I
And
was,
had you
even
heard
though,
oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but had you heard from her at all? Did you ever confront her or talk to her or anything? I mean, the fact that she was in your home cooking for you and all of these things, I mean,
yeah,
blatant betrayal.
the night
Yeah.
before she left, I said, I know you're in love with him. And she said, but he's in love with you. And I said,
Interesting.
why are you here? And she said, because I've always loved him.
Wow.
And I just got up and walked out of the room.
Yeah.
And the next morning, she left our house. But then, as he started to deteriorate, she started calling, and
Mm.
she wanted to come back and visit again.
Mhm.
And that's when he actually gave me his cell phone and said, I can't handle her. I
Mhm.
can't talk to her. I don't want to see her again.
Mm.
And so I was left to tell her that she could not visit us again, and
Mhm.
that he did not want to see her again. He said he wanted her to remember him the way he was when she was there, when he
Mhm.
kissed her hello and goodbye.
Sure.
And, gosh, when somebody's dying, you really want them to just have it be as good as it can be.
Yeah.
And
Regardless of
so,
the situation, you just yeah, I get that.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, yeah. So it took a long time to figure all this out. I didn't just figure it out in a month. It
Mhm.
took like maybe 3 years
Mm.
to put it all together,
Mhm. And did you find
because
email in the emails and the text, was there discrepancies in what was being told to you? Her saying he's in love with you, him saying I'm in love with you. Were you finding texts where he's telling her though different or that he loves her?
no,
Or
he was being honest. He was telling her he loved her.
yeah.
He was setting up times to meet her. They
Okay.
were organizing. So, like, I went to Florida to visit my grandmother. He took
That's
her to Cape Cod, right? He
ugh.
told me he had a musical gig in Boston, and that he was staying at a friend's house. 2 years later, I found out from that friend that he never stayed there.
Mm.
He went to that gig in Boston. I didn't go. She went.
Wow.
2 or 3 years later, I met one of the guys in the gig that was in the band at the gig, and he said something like, yeah, it was so weird. Chet never showed up for sound check.
Mm.
Right. And
So
you're
weird.
like, so
Oh,
yeah. So it takes time to
yeah.
put the whole picture together. And eventually I did. And then I started writing the memoir.
Yes.
And I decided I really had to tell the whole truth in the
Mm.
memoir.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what makes it a good book. But that also made it cathartic,
Mm-hmm.
to get it out of my system. It
Sure.
was
And this
like
is a long
therapy.
period of time because he died in 2009 and you did your memoir in 2020, right? So we're
Yes.
talking
Yes.
11 years of
11
keeping
years.
this
Yes.
secret. And what was that like?
Yes.
Did you tell anybody? Did your family, friends know? Or
No.
was this, oh,
No.
whoo,
No.
you just,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was hard. It's
Yeah. And it's
hard.
not even
You
like
know,
you're covering for him. You know what I mean? Like it's not even like it's your secret affair. It's his. But
right.
what that did to you, goodness, I'm sorry. Gosh.
I didn't want to. It's a look, it's a great book when you read it because stuff like that makes a great story.
Yeah.
But when it's your life, if once you open the topic, like say with some girlfriends at lunch or something
Mm-hmm.
like that,
Mm-hmm.
you put the topic out there and then it's for them to discuss.
Yeah.
And I would have been subjected to their opinions and I would have had to answer their questions.
Yeah.
And they would have really drilled into me because they were my girlfriends.
Yeah.
And I was ashamed. I
Uh-huh.
felt like it was my fault. I was embarrassed
Sure.
because I was so foolish and I did not suspect one single thing. And when he denied it, I wanted to believe him. So
Yeah.
I did. And I was very naive.
Yeah.
And I don't think of myself as a naive person.
Yeah.
And so one of my friends, when she did find out, she was really hard on me about being in denial. Like, how
Wow.
could you not know?
Till
I
you're
don't
in it.
know.
Yeah, you're blind to it.
Yeah.
You don't want to know. And sometimes you don't see those things because you don't want to see them. Even though they're right in front of you, you
Yes.
still want to see it in the most positive light, right? Yeah.
You do. And I wanted to protect him because he was dead. He
Yeah.
wasn't around to defend himself. I didn't want to be trash talking my husband after he was dead.
Sure.
And I was married to him for 32 years. And,
Gosh.
from the time you're 22
Yeah.
to the time you're 54,
A long
that's
time.
like, yeah,
A lifetime.
it's a big piece of life. It's a
Yeah.
really big piece of life.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to make that seem like I was a victim. I
Yeah.
am not a victim,
No, you're
right?
not.
I
Right.
I I I played along with that story. Now I see all the ways I played along.
Hmm.
I wasn't a really good partner, and I could have been a better partner. I don't know if
Hmm.
it would have prevented it. I might
Hmm.
have caught on though if I had
Yeah.
been more honest about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
I read that after his passing, you did go through a really dark time, to where you became depressed and had thoughts of suicide. And so, how did you then get yourself out of that dark place and get to the point where you could write about it and be okay?
yeah. Well, I will say that, animals are a great therapy.
Hmm.
And so I had the farm, he and I started it together. So I had cows
Yeah.
and goats and sheep and chickens.
Yeah.
And I loved living on the farm. I loved taking care of the animals. And farm work has to be done every day, every morning, and every night.
Yeah.
And for me, because I was farming alone, I farmed alone for 7 years. So I
Wow.
lived in the house alone. I took care of the animals alone. And it was on a dead end gravel road on the edge of the woods. And so I got a big dog
Uh-huh.
and I just put myself through it
Yeah.
until I was exhausted and couldn't do it anymore. And
Mhm.
um, that helped me see what I could do, how strong I was.
Mhm.
And then I had this epiphany that I was never going to escape my past living in the same house, sleeping in the same bed,
Interesting.
right?
Right.
I
You're just
I
reliving the same
realized,
thing over and over again.
yes.
Yeah.
I, and everyone in town knew I was a widow,
Mhm.
and people saw me through the lens of tragedy.
Yeah.
And I mean, first I really wanted to be part of a couple, and I went on match.com and had a couple horrific dates, like, oh my God, bad dates.
Really?
And then it was just, I mean, awful,
Yeah.
awful, like where you're sitting with a guy in a coffee shop, and on your first cup of coffee with him, he says he's looking for a soulmate. And I'm like, yeah, I just had mine.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm not.
Not a great starting place for me.
No.
Oh my God. And then I went on a date with a guy who kept his cat box in the bathroom.
No.
And you had to step over it. And there were
Oh.
spiders in his kitchen over his stove. And I was like, he was kind of cute. The wine was really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think if that's the best you can do, I'm not signing up for
Not
that.
interested, yeah.
And, you know, it, it was in the days when Match.com had winks.
Oh.
So
Oh,
early
I did hear about that,
Match.com,
yeah.
yes, early times, it was like likes,
Yeah.
right? Only on Match.com, they thought it would be cool if they were winks, and you would wink at somebody if uh, you liked them. And
Okay.
then I could go into my account and look at all the guys who winked at me, and that was creepy. That was just creepy. I mean,
It sounds
what are you
creepier
doing?
as in
Winking?
winked than liked for some reason. It's just
Yes.
right? That
Yes.
must be why they changed it.
Yes.
People were like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Oh gosh.
Well, so I had an 11-year dry spell where
Wow.
I decided I hated men and I just didn't want anything to do with them.
Yeah.
And I sold the farm uh, and put my dog in the car, went on a road trip, and I, went all over the East Coast, and then I went to the Pacific Northwest, to Seattle and Portland, and I got an apartment in Portland because it seemed like a cool city,
Yeah.
and then really got serious about writing and the blog. And I started the blog because my editor told me that if I wanted to be a successful author, that I needed a platform where
Uh-huh.
people could find my writing online. So she really, really coached me through launching the blog in
Nice.
2018.
Okay.
And it was a great way to connect with people, mostly women,
Yeah.
awful lot going through similar things, and just be in conversation just like this, where
Uh-huh.
you and I have certain things in common, right?
Yeah.
We were in these relationships and they didn't go how we planned, and
Yeah.
now
And we're
here we are.
dating again. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
winks and all that. And I get the winks, but it's still pretty gross sometimes.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then you met your boyfriend?
Yeah, so I was in Portland and the pandemic had just started and my
Mhm.
memoir came out, and I was really just kind of learning how to do Facebook like a pro, and
Sure.
promote my book,
Yeah.
and he's a guy I knew when I was in Illinois as a kid,
Mhm.
like in 1968. We were both in the same youth choir.
What?
And Facebook says, hey, there's this guy over here. He's friends with 12 of your friends.
Yeah.
Maybe you should be friends with him. And I looked at his name, and I had the album for the youth choir, and I looked at the album cover, and I was like, oh yeah, there he is. He's like 13 in the picture.
Yeah.
So like, sure, I'll be friends with him.
Uh-huh.
And 2 weeks later, he posted a picture of himself with my new book, and he posted a review of it and said
Oh,
what a great book it was.
smart
And
man.
okay, yes, are you kidding?
Well
When a guy
played,
does
sir.
that, yeah, well played.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we met for a socially distanced date because it
Okay.
was early pandemic and we were pretty spooked, and I wanted to be safe. And he lived 100 miles away from Portland. So we met halfway between our homes in a
Uh-huh.
state park,
Okay.
and we just walked trails together. And my dog loved him.
Is that the
And
sign
that
when the dog loves them? That's a good
I think
sign,
it
right?
is. It's totally the
Gotta be a
sign.
good guy.
Look, you get yourself a really difficult dog.
Yeah.
And then if the dog likes the guy and the guy can handle the dog, he passes the first test.
That's right. He's a
Right.
keeper.
Well, he passed the first test,
Uh-huh.
and oh look, an 11-year dry spell,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I just had in my head that I was going to be single for the rest of my life, that I
Mhm.
didn't need to be in a relationship, that I didn't even want one, that relationships were too much trouble, they take up too much time, that what good are they? Who needs a man?
Yeah.
Right. And
Right.
he was really cute. And I hadn't figured on that. He was really cute.
Yeah, you didn't plan on that one.
No.
I love that.
And he's hugged me,
Oh.
and oh my God, I'm getting goosebumps right now just because he
yes.
hugged me. Well, I hadn't been hugged in a man in, like, I don't know, a decade. I mean,
Oh.
not like that.
Yeah.
Not like a meaningful emotional hug.
Yeah.
And then, okay, just to put this in perspective, right? This was 2020.
Okay.
But you remember how the Me Too thing happened in
Oh, yeah.
2017? And it
Yeah.
was really about consent.
Mm-hmm.
Consent. And there were all these things going on the radio. NPR was having little bits on consent, right? And well, I had never been in a relationship where anybody asked consent because I come from the old school and the guys
Yeah.
were the old school. And he said, may I kiss you?
You fill my heart.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God.
Yes.
It was amazing. I was
Oh
like,
my gosh. And you're right.
yes,
That
you
does
may
not
kiss me.
happen, Billie. That really doesn't, because
Right.
I've dated a lot. I've kissed a lot of guys, and they
Yeah.
do not ask first. They
Yeah.
just kind of come on in.
No.
Yeah. I
And
love
so it
it.
was so romantic and
Mm.
so sweet. And he was being so careful. And,
Oh.
he kissed me. And, I mean, it's so funny because that's now like in my life, like I remember that as my first kiss,
Oh
right?
my
Because I
gosh.
went so
Yeah.
long without a kiss
Yeah.
that I was like, will you please do that again? And kissing is the gateway drug. And
Oh yeah. And that was
so
it.
here I am. Yes, that was
Yes.
it. I moved in 2 months later.
No.
Yes.
You did. So you knew that day. You were like on cloud 9 and you were like, this is the one. This is it.
Well,
Did you feel that, or it took a
my
little bit?
apartment lease was coming up for renewal.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one thing. Am I going to renew my apartment lease, or am I going to dip my toe in these waters?
Mm-hmm.
And it was COVID.
Yeah.
Right? We were supposed to be social distancing.
We're supposed to be doing this
we
kissing stuff.
exactly.
Yeah.
And we spent most of our walk talking about who we were exposed to and how safe our lives were, and if we were going to get COVID. And so our first date was the end of June, and I I went to his house for the weekend on Labor Day at the beginning of September, and I never left.
Yeah. Oh, you just moved in. Oh my gosh. So
I
September,
had a
yeah,
thought it might work that way. Yeah.
that's a quick 2 months, just like that.
Yes.
But 11
I think
years and 2 months.
11 years
Right?
and 2 months.
It's a long time coming.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even something I dreamed of. Like, I didn't even think it was possible. And so it's interesting because it was like discovering electricity again. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh my gosh. But
that's what all
that's what
that
they
was
say, right?
about.
Like it's when you least expect it, it just happens. When you're not trying to put a square peg in a round hole and you're just being the best you can be, that's when somebody comes in
Yes.
and complements your life.
Yes.
And for whatever reason, that had to be the right timing because you had gone through all of this experience by yourself. You knew what it was like to be by yourself. So you appreciated somebody coming in, right? That's
I
just
did.
what a neat story. And you're still
It's
together.
been very romantic. Yes.
Yeah.
We're going, well, this September will be our 4th year,
Oh my
2024.
gosh.
Yes. And,
Wow.
you know, I didn't pick him, he picked me. And I
Yeah.
had so many misgivings. He still works. And, you know,
Yeah.
he loves what he does, and he wants to keep working, and we could both be retired, but
Yeah.
he doesn't want to.
Yeah.
And, he's an outdoorsman, and I'm
Yeah.
kind of a computer person,
Yeah.
and I'm a writer, and he goes fishing. And I thought, we don't have anything in common,
Yeah.
but you know what we do have in common?
Love.
Kissing.
Kissing
Yeah,
is good.
it's
It's
quite
a
good.
good
Yeah.
kisser. It is good.
Yeah.
It's the bad
Yes.
ones you got to watch out for. I don't like I gauge everything on the kiss. I'm like, if you can make
Yes.
my toes
Yes.
curl with a kiss, you're in, you know?
That's right.
Yeah. But
That is right.
really, when you say you didn't have anything in common though, but I kind of think him going fishing, that's his quiet time, his thing for him to do, which allows you to write what you want to write and probably not feel like, you're missing out on something or that he's going to be upset you're not spending time with him because he's doing his own thing, right? I would assume you do
Yes.
that a lot. Yeah,
Yes.
we have your own time and that's okay.
Yes. It
Yeah.
is the thing that I think makes it work, is
Yeah.
that he goes to work 5 or 6 days a week, and I
Okay.
get to do whatever I want. So
Yeah.
that's my writing time.
All
And
right.
then when he goes away fishing, that's my alone time. I
Perfect.
really, really love my alone time. So it is working out really well.
Yeah.
And I'm so sensitive now to this idea, clocks and calendars,
Yeah.
right? And this
Yeah.
idea of staying in sync with somebody. So even
Mm.
though we could be on totally different schedules, I am very committed to having breakfast with him every day.
Perfect.
Right?
Yeah, start the day
Yes,
out
like,
together.
just yes. And
Mhm.
also, we have dinner together almost every night. And
Yeah.
those 2 times when we're together, we're sitting at the table,
Yeah.
and it's just that time to sync up,
Yeah.
get our circadian rhythm, our body clock, to talk about the week, to talk about the
Yeah.
calendar, to make sure we've set aside time for each other. And
Yeah.
I think, um, my husband was going to die, and I wasn't going to change that. But now when I look back at how our marriage failed in the years before he got sick, I didn't know what I know now, which is how
Mhm.
important it is to stay in synchronicity with the other person.
Yeah. That's really big, important thing you're saying. The calendars and the clocks,
Yeah.
it just keeps you in touch with each other, the communication and the moments. A lot of good
Yes.
moments in that time, right?
Yes.
So for
Yeah.
you, a big topic for you is reinvention for women at an older age, because you've gone through so many things and you talk a lot about wellness and body image and sex as you are entering into your 60s now. So how did your new lifestyle change these idealisms for you? And tell us about how women today can find old age to be liberating because it's coming upon us like every
And
day. We're reminded of how old we are and the menopause and all that stuff. And so, I just love to give our listeners information on things they can do to kind of reinvent themselves. It doesn't matter your age. Doesn't matter.
it doesn't.
Yeah.
First of all, something that it's really hard to believe while you're in menopause, it goes away.
Yeah.
It goes away.
We
Okay.
pray for it.
Yeah. I occasionally have hot flashes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I don't even think about it anymore.
Yeah.
It's
They come
just
and go
gone.
so fast these days. Yeah.
Yeah. So menopause, like, don't get too wrapped up in it. It's going to go away. The other thing I think is sex. Like, I never could have imagined that I could be having a great sex life in my 60s.
Yeah. Good for
It
you.
just, like, who even thinks about that? Who
Yes.
even thinks about it? I mean, it doesn't even come up. But now here I am, and true confession, I just turned 70.
Wow.
And I am having the best orgasms of my life.
I love it. I love it. I am
Orgasms of my
applauding this.
life.
That is
Yes.
amazing.
Well, and that, okay, to circle back, Clitapalooza is the title of my novel.
Love it.
Because I wanted to write a book about a woman who had a great sex life and who found her peak pleasure in clitoral orgasms.
Oh,
Okay, I couldn't really write that as a memoir because it was a little too much.
A little too personal.
Right. It was a little too much exposure.
Sure.
And I couldn't put my partner through that.
Yeah.
So I wrote a story about a woman who's 60 who has an amazing sex life.
Yeah.
And when her husband gets angry at her and refuses to have sex with her, she goes berserk. And that's kind of where the book starts.
Yeah.
She's looking for substitutes and she doesn't find any good ones because there's nothing like flesh. Okay. You get all the silicone, plastic, and batteries you want.
That's right. But
there's
you need the real
nothing
deal.
like flesh. So yeah, it's interesting. And I just want to say, don't stop having sex with whomever you choose as a partner, including yourself. Don't stop, because one of the best ways through menopause is to keep your sexual identity and don't let it go. Your libido might slip. You might not find your partner so appealing, like, especially if you've been in a really long-term relationship. Okay, there's other things now, right? There are other things you can do. And so find whatever works for you, but don't walk away from having orgasms because you think you're too old, because you're not.
You're not.
And you're not. And don't imagine that penetration is the best kind of sex, because it's not. And that
tell us more.
Right
tell
there.
us more.
But the clitoris is an amazing thing.
Yes.
And it's really there for our pleasure.
Yeah.
And we evolved to be in these bodies. It's not an accident. We evolved to be in these bodies. We evolved to have a clitoris. And a clitoris and a penis are made from the same fetal tissue. When the child's goes to be either female or male, that same cluster of cells either forms a clitoris or a penis, but it's the same essential ingredients that serves the same purpose, which is pleasure. There's something about pleasure that's really good for us. It's important to us. And I think that it's important for women to not be ashamed and not be embarrassed and hold on to these ideas, because as you get older and your body starts to maybe have some aches and pains, or you experience age and you're kind of dissatisfied with it, your orgasms can just get better and better,
And they get you right
right?
back on track.
Yes, they do get you right back on track. And so don't be giving up on those girls. They are
Yes.
really important.
Yes.
Yeah,
So what kinds of
that
things do you suggest that, that women can do to kind of re-spark their sex life if they're feeling like it's in a lull, it's not really happening, or, just some little things that just kind of get things going again?
well, if you're by yourself, I recommend, looking online. There are quite a range of sex toys from $50 to $500.
Yes, and you don't have to go
And
into the
you
store to get
find,
them anymore. You can get them right
no, you
online.
don't.
Nobody has to know. You can send it to
That's
yourself.
right.
Yes.
Yes. So
Yes.
that's one thing. The other thing is, um, don't let dryness stop you. Don't
Hmm.
let just don't let it stop you.
Yeah,
There's
great
so
point.
many amazing products now being made by women's companies that are so good for your body. And
Mhm.
be with yourself. Take bubble baths, take hot tubs, whatever your sauna, be with your naked body, with yourself, and
Mhm.
appreciate your senses, appreciate what it feels like to be in your body.
Yeah.
And you can do that by yourself.
Yeah.
If you have a partner, I think the most important thing is don't stop touching.
Mm.
Touch, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't stop touching. Hold hands. Uh, tangle your legs up in bed.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I do that all
If
the
you're
time.
riding in the car,
Mhm.
yeah, hold hands while you're riding in the car and put your hand on his thigh in the movies and
Yeah.
don't, just be there physically so that not every touch means you're suddenly going to have sex,
Yeah.
but every touch means I appreciate you. I
Yes.
like you. I
Yeah.
like how you feel. And also it says, touch me.
Touch
I want to be
me.
touched.
Mhm.
Yeah. Also, I in the early in this relationship sent my boyfriend some emails that I copied off of, I think, Goop, the website Goop, and also
Okay.
Laura DiCarlo about uh how to give a woman great head.
Oh.
They're articles, they're magazine articles. They're almost like slightly medical, but they're a lot about technique and what's a
Yeah.
turn on and what's a turn off. Hey,
Yeah.
forward. I forwarded those emails to him. I was like, hey, I
And was
want you to
he
get very good at this.
Yeah, this is what I want. And was he receiving of this? Like, 'cause some guys might
Yes,
be offended by it, but he was very open to receiving that. And so it doesn't hurt to try, right? I mean, you're only going to
right.
improve. And in turn, I'm sure you can say, "Hey, tell me what you like." I can,
Yes.
yeah, that's kind of a good trade-off.
It was a good trade-off, and he
Yeah.
he really, has, takes pride in his skills.
Oh.
Yeah, so
I
it's
love it.
good.
That's really
It's
good.
good. And that right there, if you can do that in a relationship with another person or
Yeah.
in a relationship with yourself, um, that's quite an accomplishment
Yeah.
because intimacy really does require kindness and
Yep.
trust.
Yeah.
And if you have somebody that you feel kindness toward and that you
Mhm.
trust,
Mhm.
that's that's such a gift.
Huge. Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that's super important to remember. We get so caught up. There's so much TV now, every streaming thing you can do, the movies, the things like that. And it's really more about taking the time to just have moments with each other. So I think date nights are
Yeah.
super important. Even if you can't go out, do things at home, like create little games to play, questions and answers that get your minds thinking or get your bodies touching, or I don't know, people
Yeah.
create dice that have different things on it of things you should try with each other. There's so many things out there that you can get now to have fun and play games with each other and kind of re-spark that, set a nice dinner or, just little things to get it started. I think is really fun. Really fun. Call him your boyfriend if you want. He doesn't need to be your husband. Call him your boyfriend. There's something sexy
He's
about
not
that.
my husband.
Yeah.
I don't think I want to be a wife again.
I was going to ask you
And
that if you would
so,
get married again.
yeah.
No.
Well, here's the thing. Wife, a lot of times it has very negative connotations.
Yeah.
And I don't need it for security.
Yeah.
And I don't need it to feel good about myself. And I don't need it to be socially acceptable.
Right.
And I don't believe in marriage as much as I used to after my own marriage just completely imploded.
Yeah.
I believe in relationships and love and trust and intimacy. I believe in those things.
Yeah.
But I feel like sometimes when you go through the process of getting married, it's like you getting married gives you permission to stop trying.
Wow. That's a good one. Yeah, I agree. It can
Yeah.
cause complacency too. You're just because I
Yeah.
think you got them. It's a lot harder to get out of a marriage, So it's just you become kind of blah with
Yeah.
it. You don't really need to try as much anymore. Yeah.
I think with guys especially,
Hmm.
um, they have access theoretically. They
Yeah.
have access to sex. So uh, after a while, maybe that's what a wife is good for.
Yeah.
And a wife has access to security, and maybe after a while, she finds that's all she needs him for. And
Yeah.
I just feel like when we put those labels on ourselves, it gives us a responsibility to a
Hmm.
relationship,
Hmm.
uh, but not really necessarily uh, the enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And we're not necessarily trying. And so I don't know. At this point in my life, I don't feel like I need to do that.
Yeah.
And I feel like I don't want to be a wife again.
Yeah. And that's okay. And does he feel the same? Like he doesn't want to either?
He would
Oh.
like a little more of the whole good old boy ownership thing,
Yeah. Was he married
And
before?
but oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
he was also married and divorced. But
Okay.
here's the thing. He said to me early in our relationship,
Hmm.
I'd love to make an honest woman out of you and get married.
That is such an antiquated line, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But there's some truth in
Mhm.
how society thinks
Mhm.
about women, and this
Mhm.
idea of making an honest woman out of me, like I will be more socially acceptable if I'm a wife than
Right.
if I'm a girlfriend, right? And
Right.
we're living in sin in some
Yeah.
people's eyes. I'm like, I don't think you can be 70 and live in sin. I'm
I don't think
sorry.
so. I don't think so. And now is he pretty close in age to you? Are you about the same?
Yes.
Yeah, because you had
Yes.
the youth
Yeah.
group and stuff together. Yeah,
Yeah.
that age.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But things are good and I'm happy. And so, yeah, I went through some dark times and
Yeah.
I found my way through it.
Yeah.
And things are so good right now.
Yeah.
And, you know, I, I just had no idea being this old could be this good. And
Yeah.
it's
And I
really
love
good.
that you're saying
I,
that because we're all so afraid of getting older and what that means. And we're going into that, every decade, you're like, oh gosh, this sucks. I'm about to be 50 this year. So I know I'm going into each of it.
yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to turn 50, but you know what? I don't feel 50. I don't think I look 50. So I'm kind of like, I don't have sex like I'm 50, you know?
Well, that's
So
right.
I'm
Bring
just
it
going with
on.
it. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, and
You're
you're
at the
right.
peak of your power.
That's right. That's right.
You. You
Me.
are at the peak of your power.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yes. So I'm going
Yeah.
I embrace it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is so cool. I love that because I you were in your 60s. So now to know you're 70s and you're still having orgasms and sex and love. I love this, Billie. I love hearing that. It's so exciting and so promising, you know? And for the women out there that are listening and the men too, it's never too late. Enjoy your life, get out there, do stuff and make the
Yes.
best of it. There's so many opportunities now to enjoy wellness for you and changes in your body and just appreciating and embracing it and going with it. Who wants to sit around and wait for life to happen? Like, go out and get it. That's what I say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh. So tell us
Definitely.
about your book. So how was the first book, your memoir? How was that? How did that resonate with the audience? Did it do well? Was it perceived
Well,
well?
this is the cover. I put a picture of myself on it because,
Yeah, it
you
made a huge
know,
mess.
women want to see women
Yeah,
age.
they do.
It's just amazing. Like, I put a picture of my face on it, like, yeah, this is my real face. I
Yeah.
haven't had face work. You can see my
Yeah.
chicken pox scar.
Yeah.
But how I made a huge mess of my life, or couples therapy with the dead man, it was very, very well received.
I
It
love it.
still is. I'm still getting reviews.
Good for
And
you.
I think it's really helpful for women who've been through hard times
Yeah.
and need to figure out how to reinvent themselves.
Yep.
No one will do exactly what I did, but it shows what's possible.
Unbelievable.
And
Yeah.
it's very helpful.
Yeah.
And then, because I couldn't write another memoir because that was
Yes.
like too running naked on the internet, I
Oh
wrote
gosh.
Clitapalooza, Her Flower Blooms Power, which is about a 60-something math professor who has a
Uh-huh.
fight with her husband. Their
Uh-huh.
sex life, which used to be really good, gets turned off, and she takes her search for fun online and falls for a chatbot and gets way tangled up in technology like she never imagined, and has to get her computer science students to help her out of the mess she's in. So it's fun, it's a mystery,
Yes.
but of course it's entirely centered on sex toys on the
Yes.
clitoris and
Oh,
what can go wrong.
yes. I need this
So
book. I need this book. I'm going
you
to get
do.
the book and read it. Yes, yes, yes. So good.
Okay,
So good. And,
good.
talking about the AI bots and stuff, I know you're not on the online dating stuff, but I've been talking about that recently with different people because a lot of that is popping up on the dating sites now. So you don't know who you're talking to, whether you're talking to a real person or a bot. I'm starting to figure out a little bit when you ask a question and you get a completely different answer that just doesn't really coincide with what you asked. But,
Yes.
that's another crazy thing out there. I mean, it is just wild right now, the things we're going through and how to navigate through it. Very, very interesting. So I think your book will be right up there for people to read and kind of get an idea of what that's like. Very cool. I love it.
Well, be safe, right? It's risky,
It's
right?
risky.
Giving away your data, giving away your contact information, giving away your biometrics,
Yeah.
using a vibrator that's connected to the internet. Who's
Mm-mm.
harvesting that data? Somebody
Mm-mm.
is. What are they doing with it? These are all things that you should just be really careful about,
Yeah. Great
but have
advice.
fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Have fun with it. That's what we want. Wonderful. I
Yes.
loved hearing that story. What a great story, Billie. I was very intrigued by that whole thing. It was very good. I'm very promising. So before you go, I'd like you to tell everybody, okay, where can they find your books and some of your social media handles, your website? Give us some of that.
Sure. My first name is Billie, Billie. And billiebest.com is my website. And I post my blog there for the last few years, and all my books are there. But also on Facebook, I'm at Facebook/BillieBest, Instagram/BillieBestWriter, YouTube/BillieBestWriter. And my books are on Amazon. And
Perfect.
when you Google Billie Best, you're going to get Billie Eilish, but God bless that girl.
Not too bad to be tied to. That's not far off.
Not too
But
bad.
yeah, and I'm pretty sure when I was on your website, I saw a couple little excerpts from the books. I think it was from the Clitapalooza book. And I was just reading through some of
Yeah.
them, very funny stuff. So if you kind of want to get an idea of what our books are like, just go on and check that out. It was very, very fun to read through. I was going to have you do like an excerpt on here, and I thought, oh, that might be a little long, but it was very cute. So definitely check that out. So before you go, I like to do a little from Mrs. to Ms. Fun facts. Would you rather this or that kind of game? Very long title for that, but it's just 10 questions, just kind of your first thought of, would you rather do this or would you rather do that? You ready?
Yes.
Okay. Number 1, would you rather have an adventurous date exploring a new city together, or a cozy night in with a homemade dinner and a movie?
A cozy night in with a homemade dinner and a movie.
More of a homebody a little bit. Number 2, if on a deserted island, would you rather sunset skinny dip or midnight beach bonfire?
Sunset skinny dip.
I kind of knew you were going to say that. Now that I know you, I knew. Okay, number
Yeah.
3. Would you rather prioritize aligning your personal purpose with your partner's goals, or maintain separate paths that occasionally intersect and enhance each other's goals? It's a tough one.
I think different times in your life, you make different choices. And so now I've made both those choices.
Yes,
And in
yes.
my marriage, we went our separate ways and tried to align it, and it just
Didn't work.
right. And so now, especially at this point in life, when I really treasure what I have and want to hold on to it as
Yeah.
long as I can, I think I'm going to prioritize staying in sync with my partner.
Oh, I love that. Great answer. Number 4, would you rather explore a new adventurous activity with your partner that gets your heart racing, or enjoy a slow, sensual evening of pampering and connection?
A slow, sensual evening of pampering and connection.
Number 5, blindfolded surprises or playful role play?
Playful role play.
It's fun. Do you do that? I have never done like a little role play.
Well, he does it a lot, and I love it.
Yeah. Is he like, doctor's here, Nurse Billie?
He's
Uh,
very entertaining.
oh, that's so fun. Okay, number 6. Would you rather have the ability to read your partner's mind during sex, or be able to control their sensations with just a touch?
Be able to control their sensations with just a touch.
Yeah, that'd be
I think
fun.
you definitely do not want to know what anybody's thinking about during sex.
Can you
It could
imagine?
really be a buzzkill. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Number 7, trying new positions or mastering the old ones?
Mastering the old ones.
Okay, good, good. Number 8, would you rather prioritize deepening your connection with your partner while discovering your inner purpose, or focus on personal growth and then share that new version with your partner?
Well, I think personal growth. I'm I'm going with that answer now because I feel like before I was more about sticking with the old thing that works. And
Yeah,
so I think you have to have a balance of both. So
yeah,
I'd go with a little change, personal
perfect.
growth.
Number 9, slow dancing in the living room or spontaneous dance moves in the kitchen?
Oh, that's so interesting. Spontaneous dance moves in the kitchen.
Fun. And
Yeah,
then number 10, tease to build anticipation or straight for the fireworks?
definitely tease.
Foreplay is where it's at.
Yes,
Oh, that was
yes.
fun. Thank you for doing that. That's always fun to kind of get to know, and it's interesting, in the beginning of what I think the answers will be, to after I have the conversation, I'm like, oh, I already know what the answer is going to be. So
Yeah.
that's a lot of fun. Well, gosh, thank you so much for joining us today, Billie. What a great story. And I'm so happy that you're happy and you can just see it radiating from you. I hope you guys will tune in and go watch it on YouTube so you can see who I'm talking to, first of all. She's a beautiful woman. And I just want you guys to see that you can be just as happy at 70 as you were at 30 or 40 or whatever age it is. So I really appreciate you sharing your story with us so much. So thanks again for
I'm
joining.
very glad to be here.
Absolutely.
Thank
And
you.
you're welcome. And to you guys listening out there, please make sure that you are following, subscribing, and liking the videos and listening to the audio. If you do like it, you can find me on any major streaming platform, and on social media. You can find me at from.mrs.to.ms. If you have any questions, don't forget to email me at info@frommrs2ms.net. You guys have a great week, and we'll be back with another great episode next week. Talk to you soon. Bye. Yay! That was so good. I didn't stop the recording
Cool.
yet. I always end the recording, and then I end up having like a little more chit chat, and I'm like, "Ah, I just should have let it run." So now I just let it run. But great story. Thank you so much for sharing that with them. I think that was, really good, because I haven't really touched on a little bit of that. Like, as you're getting older, I've kind of talked about me going into my 50s and what that's like. So I love that you shared that. Perfect.
Cool.
Yeah, I
Cool.
loved it.
Yeah, this was really good for me. I really appreciated our different times in our lives,
Yeah.
because I see, as I'm working to promote the things I've written,
Yeah.
that by putting a little different spin on it, it can actually be more helpful to younger people.
It is, because
And
I think we think life's over. We're looking at it going, "Oh my God," like me. I mean, I'll be 50 this year, and I'm just like, and it just changes it when you see a different perspective and what is still to come. We're so worried
yeah,
about it. So it was really
yeah.
good. Yeah.
No, you really are, Andrea. You are at the peak of your powers. Don't
Yeah.
doubt it for 1 second. 50 is like magic, and you're
Ah,
doing great.
thank
So
you.
just go with it.
Just go with
Okay.
it. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much.
Okay.
Well, amazing.
Cool.
Like I said, I'll reach out to you in a few weeks and let you know when it's coming out, and I'll send you clips and all that good stuff. And we'll go
Cool.
from there. Thanks,
Take good
Billy.
care of yourself.
You too,
Okay.
honey.
Bye
Have a great
bye.
day. Bye-bye.